Welcome back to Launch Your Light, a podcast for the mystical and magical woman here to share her soul purpose. All right, everyone, for this episode, I am so excited to be interviewing one of my favorite people on the planet. We today here have Carlyn Rae with us. She is a energy healer, a sound healer, a space clearer. She's been doing this for over a decade. She has certifications in energy medicine and biofield tuning and elemental space clearing. She's a clutter coach. She's writing a book right now. Oh my goodness. I am so excited to have you on to the show. Welcome, Carlyn.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, we have so many things to talk about.
Yeah.
And we're just going to dive in. We're going to dive right in for our listeners. So I want to kick off with our topic today. And you and I we talk about this in our coaching calls together and in our community, the community, the soulpreneur community that you're in with us a lot, is about this idea of unretirement. Is that what we're calling it?
It is for me, unretirement. It feels like unretirement to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is why I wanted to have you on the show, like immediately, because this is such a great topic. And I love working with women in this group, right? And let me just explain this to me on this end, right? As a almost 40 something, right?
Hmm.
This is what I work with soul purpose, and I have handfuls. I've worked with dozens of women in the plus 50
Yeah.
crew that is getting to these conversations. And I know retirement, I don't even know what the retirement age in this country was, at 68, 70 or something at this point. And they're always trying to push it. But
Oh, yeah. Too old.
right, this idea that, okay, you've had your careers, you've had your children, if that was your vibe, you've done the thing. Maybe you're still in relationship. Maybe you've had a divorce. Maybe you're right. There's a lot of change going on in those 40s and 50s.
Hmm.
And then for our country, unfortunately, a lot of people just head to like, okay, I guess I'm going to retire. And then I'll retire and then I'll have this freedom and I'll have this money, hopefully. And maybe
Hmm.
I'll go travel or maybe I'll just like pick up some hobbies. Right.
Right.
That's the vibe in our country. And then
Right.
I'm working with women like you who come to me and you're like, I am breathing for the first time. I've got these ideas flowing through me. I've got so much I need to do. It's like you're being reborn again.
Right.
So if you could just what has that experience been like for you?
Oh, wow. I started getting into energy work when I was 50. So I'm 64 now. And, I was thinking about this call today and remembering actually back in my early 20s when I was like maybe a freshman or sophomore in college, I kind of had a glimpse of what my future might be. One day I just had this really intense feeling, and it lasted for quite a while, that there was something really important I was supposed to be doing with my life. And I'm like, great, I'm ready to save the world. What is it? Nothing. Nothing came up, no clue. And so after a while, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go, be a student and be a wife and be a mom and do all the ordinary things. And I did that for a long time. And the transformation for me came, there were a couple things that kind of coincided. So one was a friend of mine who's was one of my classmates. She got into energy work and she started the Eden Energy Medicine certification program. And she was excited about that. And she was
Mm.
telling me about that. And so, I tried a little stuff with her and I'm like, well, that's cool. She happens to live in another state now, so we didn't get together very often. But um, so she kind of introduced me to that, and I didn't do anything with it. I was like busy with my life, right? Because I was a mom, and I was working full time at a university, and I was just being a muggle, I guess you would call it. and and in 2008, 2009 was like really, really stressful year. Lots of major life stressors like change jobs, family members passing away, my son going off to college, all of these different things. And I was just under like one thing after the other kept happening to me. And I was really stressed. And I wanted to do something to help myself. And I decided to try yoga. So I went to this yoga studio and I started doing yoga. And at the yoga studio, there was a little room off to the side, and there was a woman who was an energy healer there. And she had a little sign. It's like, there's an energy healer, there's sessions on Mondays. I still didn't really know what that was, but I decided to try it out. So I tried it out and it just helped me so much. I went in there feeling like really stressed and frazzled, and I came out feeling normal. And so I would go to see her once a month for that year while all that stuff is going on. But I still really didn't do too much with it. I kept thinking, oh, I want to do this. I'd like to do the eating energy medicine. Finally, in 2012, I thought, okay, I'm just going to take my tax return and I'm going to start this, because it was kind of expensive. And I kept putting it off. It's too expensive, too expensive. It's like, I have to do this. And it was so interesting. I went up to Minneapolis. I'm in Des Moines, Iowa. I went up to Minneapolis for my week-long course, the first part of the training course. And by the end of that first day, I thought, this is it. This is the important thing way back in my 20s that I was supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be working with energy. And I could help people. I could, help them release stress. I could help them balance their bodies. And I had this natural, intuitive ability to just work with it. And, the other students were like, what if I do something wrong? I don't know. I just said, oh, you can't do it wrong. Just do it. And I just started doing it. And it was great. So I started with that. And then in 2013, I decided to do space clearing, because I wanted to clear the energy in my home. There was a lot of stuff going on in my home. It felt very chaotic and heavy. And so I got this certification in space clearing. And then my same friend, she got into biofield tuning, which is a targeted sound healing with tuning forks that you hold in the energy field or put the forks on your body to clear stuck energy in specific spots in your body. So in 2017, I did that. And then, I was working with clients. So I was going to their homes. I was clearing their homes. I was, helping them clear out stress, past trauma from their lives. There's one thing people don't know is that emotions or energetic vibrations, and they can get stuck in your body, or beliefs can get stuck in your body. And so talk therapy is great, but sometimes you need something to move it out. And that's what energy and sound healing does. It physically lifts that energetic vibration out of your body and creates coherence. So I was working with my clients, and then I would go to their homes sometimes, and I would see this kind of dissonance between what they were trying to do with their bodies and what they were doing with their homes. And I was seeing that the energy in their homes, the things in their homes, was maybe not supporting what they were trying to do with their personal healing. And I decided to help people declutter. I've just naturally always been drawn to having a clutter-free home and organizing things. So it was just kind of probably my ability to work with energy and sense energy. I could feel, when things were right or not. So I started off in clutter coaching, and I would help people declutter, but not just declutter. I would help them clear out the emotional blocks to decluttering, because people would have these limiting beliefs. Oh, my great Aunt Mary gave me that teapot. I can't get rid of it. And I would help them work through that. I would talk them through it. Sometimes we would energetically work through things. I've had people where there was a woman, she had retired 5 years earlier, and all of her work clothes were still in her closet. And she could not let those go. She could not let those go. And we were actually doing this over a Zoom call. She lived in Salt Lake City, and I lived in Iowa. And she was showing me her closet, and I said, okay, take everything out and sort into piles. And then she got, she was trying to make decisions, and she couldn't. And she just froze up, and she's like, I can't. I feel panicky. I can't make this decision. And so I said, let's do some energy work. We identified which emotions needed to come out, and I cleared them. And 15 minutes later, she said, okay, I can make decisions about this stuff in my closet. And so I kind of put everything together, that, we have things in our bodies, in our energy fields, in our minds that are blocking us. We have the energy in our homes. So the other thing I talk about when I declutter is that everything contains energy. All of our things contain energy. Even our electronic things contain energy, like our emails contain energy. Electronic photos stored in the cloud contain energy. And we are energetically tied like threads to all of these things. And it can clog up our personal energy if we have too many threads going out to too many things. So I help people kind of release that and open things up internally, so they have room for new experiences and new things to come into their lives. I teach them about how to work with the energy of things, to lift that, to make it easier so that they can declutter. So I do that. And so I was doing all that kind of part-time, but in 2019, I really felt called to leave my job, which I loved, at a university working with students. I was an international student advisor for a long time. And I love that, but I thought, I need to do this. I'm being pulled in two different directions. I'm doing this on the side, and I'm being pulled back into my work life, and I can't really focus well on either one. And I knew that I had all these things that I needed to bring to the world and help people. So when I was 59 and a half, I took early retirement and jumped into the world of being an entrepreneur. And there have been ups and downs, and I actually have ended up doing part-time subbing in the public school system to supplement my income when it's a little low. But I don't see myself ever going back to a 9 to 5. I'm writing a book, as you said. The book is called Decluttering, Uncovering the Real You. And it's about a lot of the things that I talked about our beliefs and all of the things that contribute to clutter, that clutter isn't a character flaw, or it isn't because you don't have willpower or you're lazy or something like that. There's always a reason for it, whether it's, temporary circumstances, like you got toddlers at home and you can't keep up with them, or you have a parent who just passed away, you're caregiving for an elderly parent. Maybe you have, ADHD or anxiety, or sometimes you just have like a stressful event in your life. Or it could be that, you just have these things that kind of built over time, maybe some patterns, thought patterns, or things just kind of gradually built up, and then you get to this point where you're overwhelmed and you don't know what to do. And so the book is about how to get out of that, baby steps. And I'm still in the middle of writing that. I also have a second book that I started writing that's a companion, even though I haven't finished the first one. And the second book is about creating an intentional, high vibrational, healthy home. So looking at feng shui, looking at space clearing, thinking about, the importance of natural materials in your home. And not only, for like air quality or things like that, but the energy vibration of things. I've had some really interesting experiences going into places that had a lot of artificial materials versus some place that has very natural materials, and how that feels to me in my body being in those spaces. And then we're going to talk about, creating non-toxic environment as well. So all of those things are going to be in that book. So I'm kind of working on two books at the same time. I still have a practice where I do energy and sound healing. I'm working on creating some sound healing recordings, and they're going to help people clear some things out of their body. There's some calming ones. There's things to clear specific types of stress or trauma out. I'm going to be working on some pre-recorded sessions to do emotional clearing to go with this book that people can purchase, so that it's almost like having a course or a program with me, because just reading about it is helpful, but you still have those emotions or those beliefs stuck in your body. And so I want people to have a way, they can purchase this and play this and have a way to get that lifted out so they can move forward. So it's not just an intellectual exercise about how to do this, but they're actually physically experiencing the shift for themselves.
Woo! This is what I mean when she said she's going to be busy, y'all.
Yeah, I'm just getting started. I'm just getting started.
Right. Okay. I want to go. There's so many great topics here. First, you are a perfect example. You are demonstrating just how needed your light is on this planet.
Yeah.
In our just regularly, but in our later stages of life. This is not a conversation about things being over for this demographic. For so many of you, it's just popping off.
Yeah.
You're just aligning and now have the time and maybe have the finances or don't, and you'll make it anyway, right? Like it's like you've got the times freedom, the space freedom, the energy freedom. And that's why I will continuously work with amazing people like you, because I'm like, I'm your coach and I love our sessions. Right. And I have other women that are in their 60s and I'm like, they'll spend 40 minutes catching me up on what they're doing. I'm like, holy moly. You know what I mean? So what you're doing is you're anchoring and holding a vibration for other women to do the same. You're helping other women write a permission slip for this. So well, I wanted to make a connection here for you and our listeners too, with your energy healing, your space healing, the biofield tuning and the body stuff and the decluttering. This all has to do with cleaning, clearing, and decluttering their self and their space.
Right.
And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is going to be so needed now and in the future. We're recording this in America. You're talking about decluttering. We have shows, multiple shows about this.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, we
Yeah.
are obsessively buying. We've got different generational purchasing behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
That's like a whole topic in itself, right? We've got storage wars, shows called storage wars. People, so many people that pay for storage to hold the stuff that this is all energy. And we're just talking
Mm-hmm.
the stuff,
Right.
let alone how this is actually showing up in people's bodies,
Right.
right? So this isn't just like you're going to be future. This is your legacy work. This is your legacy work and your rise in your light and launching your light at this stage of your life is simultaneously supporting some of the biggest issues we're walking into in the next few decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to go off that. Right. But it's like this is so needed. Can you talk about that a little? Like what's your day-to-day like? What are the people like that are coming to you? Who's reaching out to you? What's that looking like?
A lot of people who are coming to me are women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. Sometimes in their 40s. I usually don't have anybody younger than late 30s because, like you said, they're kind of busy dating and getting married and having babies, and that's their life focus, and that's great. I did that too when I was younger. But I think you get to be 40 or 50 and you look around, and especially, depending on what age you have your children. Like one of my clients was 40 and her kids were just going off to college, but some people might have their kids a little later and maybe that might hit them in their like late 40s, early 50s. But your kids are grown and you're looking around and you're like, what is this? What did I allow to happen to my life here? And who am I and how I want to live my life? Or I have people who, so they have a lot of stuff. So this woman, she was my first big decluttering client. I didn't tell her at the time she was my first paid client, but I did confess that to her later. She was great, though. She said, I had no idea you were so professional. I'm like, thank you, because I didn't dare say. I mean, I did it for people, but she was my first paid client. And she had those same issues where, the energy in her house was stuck and she had a lot of clothes that she didn't know. She couldn't decide on things. So for her, the issue was she and her husband were entrepreneurs. They traveled a lot. She didn't have a lot of time. She also loved fashion and she loved to buy clothes. So she had a subscription to something called Stitch Fix, which I don't know if you've heard of it, but they send you boxes of clothes like, here, you might like these. And then you have to send them back. Otherwise, these boxes of clothes keep coming to your house. And then her weight fluctuated a little bit. So she had clothes in different sizes. And so she ended up with closet stuff with clothes and bins of clothes around her room. And then it just got to be overwhelming and she couldn't deal with it. And so one of the things that she told me she did was if she needed a black suit for a meeting and she couldn't find her closet because it was too full, she'd just go online and buy another one.
Wow.
Which contributed to the problem. So by the time she came to me, she's like, I've been trying to work on this on my own for a while. I just can't do it. And so I just had her start with the bedroom and we took everything out, and her family went away for the weekend. We just laid everything out in the living room and the dining room and we made piles. And I said, there's a maybe pile, like, I don't know what to do with this. Or there's a pile where I love this, but I can't wear it right now. I might want to keep it. Or there's a pile of work clothes, or there's a pile of leisure clothes, or whatever. And I never force anybody to do anything. It's like, I just say, these clothes have a job. Their job is to feel comfortable, make you look good, make you feel like they're appropriate for the situation, and you need to love it, right? So unless it's like some old clothes that you're cleaning the house or painting with, you want to look good in your clothes, right? And so I just said, do you love it, or is it just, well, I have it and I spent the money, so I don't want to, get rid of it. So I just kind of help them have new criteria for that. So we went through a lot of stuff and cleaned out. We spent weeks doing things in her house weeks and weeks and weeks. And it was really amazing because, we did a lot of work, and then I didn't hear from her for a while. About 6 months later, she messaged me and she said, my husband and I decided to sell this house and buy our dream house. And they moved,
Wow.
so she started out with, I'm stuck, I don't like this. And now I love my clothes, and now I have space in my life to do something.
Mhm.
And, they've bought this dream house and they're traveling and doing all these things. And, and that opened up space for her to have
Mhm.
a new life and see what she really wanted.
Mhm.
I've got a couple other stories I love to tell too. So another client was in one of my coaching programs. I haven't run one for a while. I'm going to be, but I had 10-week clutter coaching programs with groups, and we would meet every week and talk about things. And I would do a little emotional clearing for the group too. And I knew this woman and her partner, and they had been wanting to move out of their apartment for several years and get some land and do biodynamic beekeeping. And she was learning to be a
Wow.
beekeeper, but they had a lot of clutter, and her partner had a lot of anxiety, and they just could not seem to get moving with this. And it was the most amazing thing happened. Like she came on the first call, and we talked about some things, and I gave everybody assignment to do a little cleaning in their bedroom, like clean out a dresser drawer or a bookshelf or something like that. And she came back the next week and she said, well, I haven't had time to do much because I've got all these phone calls that there are these bee swarms, and I needed to find hives for them and places for them in the city. So she had been planning on moving out to the country and, waiting and doing the whole thing, right? But as soon as she opened up this little bit of space in her life by cleaning out a bookshelf, the beekeeping started to come to her. And the really cool thing about it was that she said yes to something, her dream showing up in a way that wasn't exactly how she envisioned it, right? So she thought she was going to move somewhere and have some land. And instead, the bees came to her in her urban environment. And so she had friends that she could set up beehives, and she set up
Cool.
these beehives around the city, and she started doing that. And then a couple years later, they did finish clearing out their apartment, and they have this, they work at this honeybee sanctuary for biodynamic beekeeping, and they're building a house there.
Wow.
So I love these stories because
Yeah.
people have these things, and they shift. And the third story is someone I'm still working with. She asked me to help her with space clearing her house. And as we were talking about things, her mother has since passed away, but her mother was in an apartment, and they were getting ready to put her into hospice care, and she had a lot of her mother's things in her basement, and she'd gradually been moving her mother's things into her house for storage. Her mother did a lot of crafting, and she liked to do a lot of crafting, and so there were a lot of crafting supplies from her mother. But she said to me, I don't know what's happened to me. I used to have a fairly clutter-free house, and now my house is full of stuff, and I'm buying storage cabinets and bookshelves. And we went down to the basement of the garage, and it was like full of cabinets and bookshelves and craft supplies, and you could hardly walk through it. And I said, she was telling about her mother, and she said, my mother kind of has hoarding tendencies. And I said, when did you start buying all this stuff compulsively? Was it before or after you moved your mother's things into your house? And she said it was after. And so the energy, her mother's energy of like this compulsive hoarding, was in the house, and it was affecting her, and it was affecting her mental state and her behavior. And then when we did the space clearing, like the next week, she said, I've started making arrangements to sell some of these cabinets. Before that, she was like, I have to have this. I might need it. Right? But it wasn't really her. It was the energy causing her to think that way. So there's some really powerful stuff that we don't know about why things are the way they are. But those are, a lot of women I work with like that. I have some friends and clients that I worked with whose parents, were elderly, were in care, and then they passed away, and they had all their parents' stuff come to their house. And so kind of helping them clear the energy, helping them sort through their parents' stuff, let things go without guilt, or process the emotions around letting go of their parents' stuff. I mean, I do that too. I help people do it, but I have to do it too.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, my mother gave me a box of old bank statements that she wanted me to shred. And my father passed away in 2008. My parents had a farm together. And my mother's kind of decluttering and downsizing because she's kind of following my example. And she said, I have this box of old tax statements from the 1990s and bank statements from the 1990s that she wanted me to shred. But I needed to take all the staples and all the paper clips out. So I'm looking through each of these one by one. And I came across handwritten notes from my father's handwriting about expenditures for the farm. And it just took me right back to, when my father was still alive and we lived on the farm and I was a kid and how I felt. And it was very emotional for me. And I had to stop.
Yeah.
I had to stop and put it away for a few days and process it before I could go back. And so when I'm working with people who are doing things like that, I always say, allow yourself time to honor your feelings and process your feelings. Unless there's some emergency, you don't have to just push through and try to get all of that stuff out of the house or say, why can't I let that go? What's wrong with me? Because that's part of the process of making decisions about things is honoring your feelings. So
it brings up the conversation that we've had in our group and on our calls a lot, is this people becoming more aware and conscious of the energy sensitivity to things like this. It's not just the hoarding. It's not just the stuff. You're beautifully demonstrating the ties, the energy, the cords, the connections, memories, emotions, like the stuff that we have is an external representation of what's going on within us.
Yes.
Right? Whether this is a pattern you're trying to break for a few decades, or you took on a bunch of stuff from your parent that died, and it happens overnight. Right? It's like, ooh, these are the conversations we need to be having. And it's almost like I want to help you get your own podcast going, because these stories that you're telling are so good. Like, you could be talking weekly about this for years. It's so good. And I know people are going to love this episode because they love stories and they're going to really relate to the stories you're sharing and what I'm sharing, right? Like, I feel like this is just a conversation that's like brimming with energy, right? And because there's such a need for it on the planet, and especially in this country. Like, I'll just keep saying America because we have a problem with this. You know what I mean? Like, this is an actual problem.
Right. We do. And I was telling my friend, everything is set up for us to buy lots of stuff, to use stuff to solve our problems, to make polluting easy, to make, it's so dysfunctional. It's so dysfunctional. And you have to really be intentional and put an effort to live an intentional life, to choose organic food, to choose non-toxic cleaning products, to choose how you live your life. You have to really work at it. It's not set up that way at all.
Yeah. I want to bring up like a quick story that happened for us recently. We had been trying to get past this point of how many members we had, and it took us all year. So like 6 months of us really not being able to break past this barrier. We'd get like 2 more members and 3 would cancel. And then we'd get 5 more members and 6 would cancel. Like, it was like, oh, and eventually after a few months, I was like, babe, this is energetic. We need to start like literally viewing this as energy and really exploring like what this means. And it wasn't like we got out our notebooks and we just sat with it. We're like, what's the energy here? So energetically, there was this, like, we knew it was a next level us that we had to step into, which we were used to doing, but it doesn't make it easier when you know that. You know what I mean?
No,
like, it doesn't make it easier. If for anything, sometimes it gets harder and more challenging, right? Because we're facing in the unknown. We're facing into the unknown. But it had to do with like our responsibility levels and leadership levels and visibility levels, and really also saying goodbye to the versions of us that needed to go. So a bit of it started to shift, and we were in awareness, like verbally and mentally and emotionally, that this was the next level us that was calling us forward. And then we needed to physically show up for that. And it wasn't like show up on time and go be a boss. Jayme went and attacked the garage and gutted it and we put mad stuff on the side of the road and let people have it for free. We got rid of what we didn't want and what we won't take to the new house. I cleared out the back hallway, which literally was just had so much stuff. It's just like the back end of your house that has crap in it, right? But you like couldn't get by. We couldn't get by, and you'd like knock things over. And I attacked that. We did a little bit of the basement, and it felt amazing to release this. Oh, and I made Jayme like clean out his closet. Plus, we got a housekeeper, and we said yes to having a full-time bookkeeper. So we got help in places that we didn't need to spend our energy in anymore. And then physically, material wise, attacked it. We just signed up 15 more clients.
That's amazing.
I love that. It was like past that, we went flying over that thing that we couldn't get. And I can't pinpoint it. I can't say it was just the garage. I can't say it was just because we got a bookkeeper and housekeeper. It was all of it. But I'm giving and demonstrating a good example of like, this is how this stuff is intertwined energetically in your body and the world around you when you're trying to even like build your business. Right. So do you have a story on that? Because you and I work together privately. My question to you is, what has it been like for you to have a coach helping you level up your business this year?
Yeah. Well, it's been really interesting because I think we started in April. I've been in your group program for a while. We started individual coaching in April. And, I made this commitment that I'm going to get this book out there. And, we talked about this intuitive vision for my book that I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be a public figure that's going to reach thousands of people. And, what that version of me might look like, and I'm going to be professional. I'm going to be on the stage and working. And so I started doing things. I started thinking about that. And I thought, well, my social media looks a little amateur. So I totally revamped my social media, my Instagram and my Facebook posts. And I just started, to create a brand. And I created a brand in Canva and I started posting. So that was the first thing I did. And then I started thinking about creating some structure in my life. So I started taking yoga. I hadn't done that for several years. Last week, I started walking 4 or 5 days a week.
Yes.
Like a 2-mile lap. So I started doing that. And then, of course, things start to come up for you. And I'll share my story about that, because that's the other thing. It's like, as you start to level up and step into this version of yourself, there are things in the old version of you or your old life that can't come with you. And so those are going to come into your awareness, sometimes in an unpleasant way, to make you look at it and say, hey, oh, you have this pattern, or you have this fear, you have this thing that you haven't addressed. It needs to be cleared out to make way for the next level version of you, right? So what started happening to me was I started having like people doing things that were off or miscommunicating. So I had some miscommunications with my accountant about taxes, and they gave me the wrong tax advice. And I've been working on getting that sorted out. I had a thing with my hairdresser where I went in and I wanted my hair to be, I highlight my hair and I wanted it to be like dark ash blonde. And I came out with red hair. And the hairdresser was insisting that my hair was not red, and I was insisting that it was. And I just, left and went to a different hairdresser to correct it. And then I had like an argument with my neighbor on the other side of my duplex about mowing the lawn, and she was really weird about it and went off on me about how I didn't appreciate her mowing the lawn, even though we'd agreed like last fall that she was supposed to mow the lawn and I was supposed to take care of the sidewalks in the winter. I was like, where is all this weird stuff coming from? But I realized it was bringing up a pattern for me.
Yeah.
And the pattern was not feeling comfortable confronting people when there's something not right that needs to be addressed. There was this fear of like people not liking me, right? And making waves, and people being upset with me. But sometimes people have to just be upset with you. If someone is doing something that's causing a problem for you, you have to step up and you have to address it and say, you don't have to be nasty about it, but you have to say, this is a problem and this needs to be fixed. And so I had to do some work on myself. I had to look at myself and do some energy work on myself about, because immediately I started having this anxiety, like, I can't, I don't know. I don't feel safe talking to this person and saying this. So I had to work on myself and clear that out and then say, no, let's fix this. So I've been doing that, and I've been continuing to create more structure in my life. Yesterday, I just met with an attorney's office and started to draft a new will. And
Wow.
but my old will was from 1995.
Wow.
I know, right? And I hadn't changed it since then, right? And I thought, I need to do this. I need to get this updated. I need to, and it's kind of a big deal. Some people don't do that. I've also started writing up things about, you know, my website, how to access my website. What are the automatic payments that are for my business or my utilities, and what are the email, the links and the username and the password. And I'm getting all this written down so that my son can, God forbid I got run over by a truck tomorrow. My son, my God, what happens? I have a friend, one of my clients, she got hit by a car and broke her leg crossing the street, 3 weeks ago. So, you just never know what's going to happen, right? And so I want to have systems in place so that if, something happened to me very suddenly, that people wouldn't know what to do with my stuff. They would know my passwords, and this is all part of this structure that I need to create to support all these creative, energetic things that I'm doing as well. Like the structure holds the energy, kind of like the banks of the river hold the water. So that's how I'm viewing it.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because these are the reality conversations that people don't want to have. And whether we're talking about structures or wills or a Google Doc with all of this information in, right? It's like it's almost like that's the foundational stuff that really helps hold up your vision,
right?
Even bigger and deeper, right? So working with you privately, it's been since April. I mean,
It's since April, yeah.
Been working together for years, but now having private sessions, it's like things for you have like catapulted to these next levels. And that's what coaching does. You know what I mean? You get coaching, you have someone specifically looking at you. We get to focus on just you, not in a group setting. We get to really go deep, and shit comes up, right? So it's like I can just witness and see this in you. Not only have you been doing the actual like structural masculine stuff, you've been doing a lot of the healing, energetic, and feminine work too. And because you're doing that and you're working on that like equilibrium state within yourself, right? That divine union of growth and wholeness within you, you are moving forward and shifting into a new vibration. Like, do you think you almost feel like a different version of yourself?
Oh yeah. I definitely feel different. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm a very different person than last year. And I want to tell people, not to be afraid of stuff coming up, not to necessarily think that if something comes up, it means they're not supposed to do this. Because, in the spiritual community, people often put out this idea of like, well, if it's meant for you, it'll just flow. I'm like,
right.
Not necessarily. I think almost sometimes if it's meant for you, it might even be a little bit more of a struggle.
Right.
Because things are going to come up, things that you have to work through, limiting beliefs that you have to work through. This new version of you that you're moving towards, you got to let go of the old version of you. You got to let go of your old baggage first. And if you're not consciously aware of what that is, that's going to be put in your face and say, here's this thing that you don't want to look at, that you got to look at and take care of so that you can move forward.
Yep. Can I add on to that? Because this is such a great conversation. And I think a lot of people are scared to then move into that next version of them. And we can see that in the world. People are like, no, everything's fine. We're just going to keep everything fine, right? But actually, because we're on a planet that is constantly evolving and constantly changing, you're going to be pushed into a new version, whether you like it or not, almost.
Right.
And that's when you get like the universal bitch slap, we call it, right? And it's like, everything's evolving and changing every second of every day based off every decision everyone on the planet makes. So you're going to be pushed into that next level, or you're going to...
Do you want to just float down the river on a raft, or do you want to like be dragged kicking and screaming and half drowned? Because it's going to move. Things are going to be moving whether you go along with them or not. So instead of resisting it, just go with the flow and let it go. And it's, yes, things come up. was this pleasant to have issues about my taxes or an argument with my neighbor? No, but it didn't kill me. You know, it's not the worst thing in the world. Is it pleasant to sit there and like write down all of my passwords and usernames and all these procedures? No, it's not fun. But, you know, not everything in life is fun, but it's not
Right.
going to be the most horrible thing either, you know. And then when you got it done, there's this huge feeling of accomplishment. But
Yeah.
I was talking to my friend, she's like, I just want to tell you, stop and think about, you just updated your will and you spent a long time updating a will and creating power of attorney for your business and everything in case something, you know, you got incapacitated. She said, that's a big deal. You know, stop and realize that that's a big deal and not everybody's ready to do that.
Right. Can we talk about what you were just on with the going back to the veil thinning, I want to call it?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of people, and I will say a lot of people in older age range, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
I understand when they come to the state of the world right now and they're like, but back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and that, like, things were easier, or you didn't God, there's so much there. There's so much to unpack. It's almost like life was just what it was. And you would just
Mm-hmm.
accept that that's what life was. And there wasn't so much energy. There wasn't so many electronics. There wasn't
Right.
online. There weren't how many millions? I think I looked up 10 million towers around the planet,
Wow.
right? For the internet,
Mm-hmm.
right? And signals, and then we've got thousands of satellites orbiting the planet, right? So that's just like I'm giving the physical representation that we've got a lot more energy on the planet. But like it's like, well, back in my day, we just lived our life, we had our job and we got married and we kept our mouth shut and we did what we
Mm-hmm.
did and we just lived. And it's like now you look around and it's like, whoa, shit's getting weird. You know what I mean? It has been getting
Mm-hmm.
weird for a while, but it's like up leveling. So
Yeah.
this kind of like, what do you say to that person who's like, wait, why is everything so challenging? Why do I need to change? This whole like, should I just float down the river or should I go kicking and screaming? Why? Why do we need to
Yeah.
even do any of that? Right? Like what's your take
Yeah.
on the energy side of that?
Ooh. Well, we can't go back.
Right.
I mean, no one can ever go back. I mean, you know, in the 70s and 80s, could you go back to 1900? No. You know, I'm
Right.
sure there are people who are alive and, you know, in their 20s in 1900, like, well, it was a lot simpler time. Like, yeah, you can never go back. You know, you
Right.
have to just adapt to what's happening now. You don't have to take on every single thing that's around you.
Yep.
I just had somebody come to my door a couple days ago from an internet provider, and they were installing a different internet in their neighborhood, and they were, you know, trying to get me to switch internet. And he said, "Oh, do you have your internet and your TV as a bundle?" And I said, "I don't have a TV," and he didn't get it. And I said, "Oh," he said, "Oh, you don't have a TV on the package?" And I said, "I don't own a television." And he was like really shocked. And I haven't owned a television since, I don't know, maybe 2006, 2007.
Wow. Yeah.
And it wasn't a deliberate decision. I had one like everybody else. And, you know, I was a single mom and I didn't have a lot of money and our TV broke. And so I said, well, we'll just, you know, get by. And I got my son a little like handheld video games and we watched movies on DVDs and we were going to get by. And then after about a year, I thought, you know, I really like having a television. And it's gotten to the point where, you know, I'm very sensitive. I don't like being in public spaces where there's a TV blaring in the background.
Mm-hmm.
It's distracting. It's hard for me to think. It's hard for me to have conversations. I'm subbing in the public schools now. I'm seeing kids on their phones. I'm seeing videos playing in the classroom for the special needs kids all the time. And I'm thinking, this cannot be good. And for me, like I'm choosing to have a peaceful home. I'm choosing not to have all of that stuff blaring at me constantly, the energy coming at me constantly. And it's not just about the electronics, but it's like what we're taking in to our bodies. So it's not just like what we eat, but we take in information, we take in feelings from things. So, having the news, at least in the US, is like horribly negative. Right?
Right.
And it's just constant drumming horrible things into you all day long. And so it just makes you anxious and upset. And a lot of the things that they're going on about, I have absolutely no control over. So I can sit there and worry about, uh, who's going to win the presidential election. I can
Right.
vote, but I don't have any control over that. I can sit and stew about that and worry and make myself anxious. But if I do that, then I'm not able to be grounded and balanced and focused on helping my clients. That's like, I have to focus on what I have control over, what my sphere of influence is. It doesn't mean I don't care about, the Palestinians and Israelis and what they're doing, or it doesn't mean I don't care about the presidential election or whatever, but it just means that I'm not focusing my time and energy on something I have no control over. And I'm focusing on the things that I can do to make the world a better place and to help people. And some of it's small group work, some of it's one-on-one work, but I do feel like that ripples out. So that's the other thing I really thought about with the way I view like movies and TV shows is that they are fiction, but they present the energy of that reality into your home, into your life, into your energy field. So I cannot, for example, watch horror movies.
No.
I don't watch reality shows where people are like, trying to sabotage each other and be the winner.
Yeah.
That just is like so horrific to me. I can't watch shows where the protagonist, like there was it Breaking Bad was a few years ago, where the guy's like making meth in his house and people are like, oh, this is such a cool show. And I like tried to watch 10 minutes. I'm like, I can't even be in the same room with this thing on,
Yeah.
So people need to be mindful of that and make mindful choices. Like, what are you going to eat? What are your food choices going to be? I would love to have all organic food. I can't afford all of it, but as much as I can, I make choices. Like if I'm going to eat apples, I buy organic apples because apples are one of the things apples are one of the foods that has the most herbicides and pesticides on it. So, but maybe I eat, non-organic meat or something. So, I don't want to shame people, but I want to say, be mindful of your choices and be aware of like what you're eating, what you have in your home, what you're consuming in the media is doing to you and your nervous system and your belief system. And I feel like, each of us kind of has this ripple effect in the world. And so I want my ripple effect to be beneficial to everyone. I don't want to contribute to anxiety and stress and hatred, know. And so, those people are out there, but I could get on Facebook and get on arguments with people about their stance on, I don't know, trans people or race relations or whatever. That's not going to do anything except perpetuate more conflict. And I don't want to be part of that.
Yeah. Oof. Ooh. Bringing it right around, Carlyn. This is the real deep stuff.
Just old people, we know how to lip off about things and say our opinions. So.
No, this is great. This is why I love working with you, right? And I think you're a walking representation of this whole podcast. The whole point of this podcast, launch your light. Like you were ready to launch your light. And I know we're closing up at the end of this, but I'd want to bring up, I think I brought this up on other episodes too before, is like this time capsule thing. I'm just looping back around to the first thing you said on this podcast. Well, I knew something. I knew back then I was here to do something, but I had no idea what it was. Right? What you have demonstrated us in the last 40 minutes, right, is this idea of a time capsule, right? That some of it isn't going to become clear and it isn't going to click into place until the planet is at a certain consciousness level, right? You are at and vibrating at a certain level of consciousness, like until the frequency aligns. And all of us doing that simultaneously on the planet together is making the energy and you making these decisions, right? About, I'm similar with the technology in that. Like I'm a mom too. Like, so my kids kind of have taken over the TV, but I don't watch TV. I don't have time. People are like, how are you doing everything you do, Jayme? I'm like, I don't watch TV. I don't dedicate 3 hours a day. And hey, if I could sit around one day and have like 3 hours to watch period pieces, that would be awesome. Like, that would be like a day off for me. You know what I mean? But I am busy with the
Yeah,
stuff and the passions and the purpose work that I have to do. And I'm just dedicating my source energy to that, to bringing these
right,
creations to life. So I think you're a
right.
walking, beautiful example of that.
Thanks.
So, okay, we could go on and on. I will definitely have you back on the show. I am here to help you as much as I can with all of these creations pouring out of you. The book, I'm so excited for your book. Oh my God. Um, and okay, let's use the last minute here. How can people, you'll give me a link, but what is going to be the best way for people to reach out to you, work with you, connect with you?
Connect with me through my website, carlynrae.com, and I have my email on there. I have phone number, so you can text me as well. You can look up my services and see, is there something you want to do? I also offer free consultations, so you can book a free consultation through my website. You don't have to just pay me to talk to me. I don't believe in doing that. I want people to figure out, am I the right person for them, and how can I help them before they book a service?
Great. Send me that link so I'll be able to put it in the show notes before I get this call out.
Yeah.
This has been such a pleasure. You're such an inspiration to the world. I'm so honored to be here on this journey with you. Thank you for coming on today. And I can't wait to see what the next decade brings for you and your light, Carlyn.
Thank you. I'm really glad to got a chance to talk to you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you to all our listeners for tuning in once again, and we'll see you on our next episode. Much love.